Phyllis's book, Choice Not an Echo, persuaded people like me that maybe we could make a difference if we'd fight on.
She is a major historical factor in my own life, and I think in the history of my country.
President Reagan always felt he could count on her, and I know that of all the people who called the White House to talk to him, hers was a call that always went through.
Phyllis Stewart was born in St. Louis, Missouri.
Well, I grew up during the Depression of the 1930s, and things were very tough. Money was very scarce, and it was something to survive during those years. My father was hardworking, loyal, industrious, faithful to his family, had no interest in life other than his family. My mother was a tremendous role model. She got her degree in 1920. And when it was necessary for her to help support the family, she was prepared to go to work, and she became the librarian at the St. Louis Art Museum.
Odile Stewart, Phyllis' mother, believed that a sound education was important, and her sacrifice enabled Phyllis to attend the highly regarded Sacred Heart Convent.
The Sacred Heart Convent in those days was a very fine education. It was very disciplined. It had a lot of rules. It encouraged study, it encouraged good behavior, and it had rewards for both if you did them well.
Phyllis earned many of those rewards at Sacred Heart, and though her parents instilled a strong desire for higher education, she knew that education would be her own responsibility. At the height of World War II, she took a full-time job at a local ammunition plant to pay her way through college.
I fired machine guns and rifles, and I did all of the tests for the ammunition that were necessary: accuracy, velocity, hang fire, penetration.
It was an experience that sparked a keen interest in national defense and encouraged political studies.
I chose political science courses in college because they fit best into my work schedule, and I found I liked it. And then I went on and got a master's in political science at Harvard. I got a job in Washington with a little firm called the American Enterprise Institute that did research and bill analyses and ghostwriting for congressmen and senators. And in 1946, I had my first big plunge in politics when I ran the campaign of a congressional candidate. He was a Republican, and he won.
But her graduate degree and strong political interest were secondary. To Phyllis Stewart, the most fulfilling of life's experiences were about to begin.
I met Fred Schlafly in March, and we were married in October. He was tall, dark, and handsome. He was smart. He was successful. He had political and moral and family outlook on life that was very much like mine. So it was a wonderful companionship. I devoted myself exclusively to caring for the new baby. I nursed all of my 6 children for at least 6 months, and I put everything else aside. I just feel that there is nothing so helpless as a newborn baby, and that baby needs his mother, and needs his mother round the clock. And I enjoyed that. Those months passed very fast.
Chicago is a city divided as thousands of delegates and observers stream into the city.
In 1952, Phyllis Schlafly attended her first convention.
The Republican National Convention in Chicago in 1952 was the biggest event of that year. It was the contest between Robert Taft and Dwight Eisenhower.
And here comes Mr. Republican himself, Senator Robert Taft.
Phyllis Schlafly supported conservative Senator Robert Taft, but power brokers within the party, kingmakers as Phyllis would later call them, replaced elected pro-Taft delegates in Georgia and Texas with Eisenhower delegates of their own.
I learned a lot at that convention. First of all, I learned the power of the liberal Eastern kingmakers to force their nominee on the Republican Party. And I also learned the power of the media to distort the news.
In 1952, Phyllis Schlafly ran for and won the Republican primary for Congress.
The day I won the primary, they came out for a victory statement, and they took a picture of me with my apron on cooking breakfast for Fred, and that picture was published in newspapers all over the country.
Though she would lose the general election, Phyllis Schlafly, the Alton housewife, was rapidly becoming Phyllis Schlafly, the stateswoman. By 1964, the Republican presidential nomination was in full swing. Phyllis supported Arizona conservative Barry Goldwater, but she knew that the kingmakers would again try to deny the conservative candidate. In an effort to inform and mobilize conservatives, she wrote her first book, A Choice, Not an Echo.
I knew that if we were to get Barry Goldwater nominated as the Republican candidate, the delegates to that convention needed to know how the nomination had been stolen away from the conservative by the New York Eastern kingmakers. And that's why I wrote A Choice, Not an Echo. It was a history of Republican national conventions. So I pounded it out on an old manual typewriter. I'd lived a lot of those conventions and researched the others. It was published in April of 1964, self-published, of course. Nobody would publish a book by an unknown Alton housewife.
When I read the book, I just couldn't believe that she answered all the questions to the problems of the Republican Party that everybody was asking, and it was all in this little book. So I immediately bought 1,000 copies to sell to Republican women all over the state of Florida. And then after that, I was in the book business. Everybody was calling me for hundreds and hundreds, and then I was ordering them by the thousands, literally.
That book, which was in print to the tune of 3 million copies, circulated widely in my then home state of Louisiana, and it motivated people to get active and persuaded people like me that maybe we could make a difference.
By the time the delegates arrived in San Francisco, the tide had turned, and this time, victory belonged to the conservatives, in part because of the impact of A Choice, Not an Echo. But the housewife from Alton, Illinois did not limit her interest to political campaigns. She was quickly gaining a reputation as an expert on national security.
After A Choice, Not an Echo had this tremendous sale in 1964, I received a phone call one day from Admiral Chester Ward, who lived in Hawaii and who was the country's premier nuclear strategist. And basically, he said, "Phyllis, how about doing a book with me?"
Phyllis Schlafly would write 5 books on national defense and earn respect among leaders in Congress, the Pentagon, and patriotic groups like the Daughters of the American Revolution.
The most remarkable thing about Phyllis, when we started working together, was to find a woman who, in fact, understood military strategy, could understand what I was talking about when I talked about technical answers to military problems.
Here was this beautiful woman and brilliant woman. I mean, you couldn't help but be in awe of her command of the issues and understanding and her principled commitment to fighting the good fight.
But perhaps more important, she was encouraging a whole new grassroots activism among women.
The night I met Phyllis, she was probably about 7 months pregnant in the most beautiful royal blue dress, and she was absolutely stunning. And she was giving a talk on defense. Now, imagine having a very attractive pregnant mom as an authority on the defense situation back in the early 60s. And that was Phyllis Schlafly.
My father supported everything that my mother did. I don't think my mother would have done anything without my father's support. And I think that's because of that support that she was able to do the things that she did, because she had such a reservoir of love and support at home that gave her so much confidence when she was out. But I don't think she would have taken on any battle unless my father supported her in it.
By 1967, Phyllis Schlafly's supporters numbered thousands. She was gaining national respect as a leader in the conservative movement. But the time-consuming task of communicating with those supporters in the field posed its own problem. The solution? The Phyllis Schlafly Report.
Back in 1967, a big issue was the giveaway of the Panama Canal. And I started the Phyllis Schlafly Report, thinking that if I wrote a monthly newsletter, I would be able to better handle my mail and answer the questions that people were asking me about national issues. Many of those first issues were about national defense.
In 1970, Phyllis waged a second battle for a congressional seat. Though she lost a close election, she gained valuable experience.
Some people look upon congressional campaigns as winning or losing. I now look upon them as winning, losing, or learning.
Phyllis learned a lot during that campaign, knowledge that was about to become critically important.
Well, the ERA was literally unstoppable.
Failure is impossible. We will have equal rights.
We have a movement that is not only going to keep moving, but is going to change the face of this nation.
When I first got here to Congress in 1977, my own party had completely capitulated with not just a little fear, also to the whole radical feminist agenda.
In the early 70s, radical feminists tried to change the U.S. Constitution by adding the so-called Equal Rights Amendment, ERA. Politicians and celebrities spoke out in favor of ERA, and its ratification appeared inevitable. Phyllis Schlafly, however, saw that it could be and should be stopped.
The Equal Rights Amendment was presented as something that would benefit women. The truth was that it was a big takeaway of the rights that women then possessed, such as the right to be exempt from the military draft and to be exempt from military combat, the right of a wife to be supported by her husband and to have her children supported by her husband. ERA would also be a big transfer of power from the states to the federal government over such matters as marriage, divorce, alimony, schools, prisons, and insurance.
Phyllis also saw in the ERA an attempt to change the traditional roles of men and women and to undermine the American family. In February of 1972, she blasted ERA in her Phyllis Schlafly Report. Through her newsletters, appearances at state legislative hearings, and on national television, Phyllis Schlafly opposed the ERA.
Do you see any redeeming social value to the women's movement?
No, I don't. I think the women's lib movement is anti-family and destructive. At least 99% of the media were opposed to us on the issue of the Equal Rights Amendment.
The battle continued, and in 1975 it came to Springfield, Illinois. Something happened that day that transformed the Stop ERA movement.
I prayed that we could bring 1,000 people to the rotunda of the Illinois State Capitol. And I remember that day they came. The buses rolled in. Our Capitol had never seen such a demonstration before. And when I saw them come from all over the state, long hours of riding in buses, from all the various churches, I knew that we were putting together a movement that could win this battle and other battles too in the future.
When she stopped it in Illinois, and the press began taking notice of this woman who single-handedly was defeating this unstoppable movement in the country, then we all began to think this could be done.
Phyllis Schlafly was the pro-family movement in this country before anybody else even recognized there was a need for such a movement.
Stop ERA and the pro-family movement became a formidable force, but the pro-ERAers gained the full support of the president.
We will ratify the Equal Rights Amendment for the United States of America.
Even my husband said, the ball game's over. We're finished. And Phyllis Schlafly called us on the phone and said, no way are we finished. We're just going to fight harder.
Phyllis Schlafly went to work in Washington, too.
And she said, Bob Dornan, I not only do not want you to and will not accept your caving on this issue, I'm telling you right now, I'm recruiting you as one of my lieutenants. And I'll be over to explain this, at least I got the personal treatment, and give you your marching orders. The next thing I know, I'm the only congressman staying overnight in Houston.
Houston was the site of the 1977 International Women's Year Conference, a $5 million taxpayer-supported media event stacked with ERA supporters. The convention adopted resolutions supporting abortion, ERA, and the entire gay rights agenda. But across town, Phyllis Schlafly had gathered more than 17,000 pro-family women.
There are many differences between this meeting and the one in that other hall today.
Across the country, in state after state, the pro-family Stop ERA movement gained steam. No more states would ratify ERA, and 5 states rescinded their previous ratification. By June of 1982, time was running out on ERA. Illinois was a must-win state.
In the last stages, the ERA advocates waged a hunger strike in the rotunda of the Capitol. On the second floor, they had a chain gang where the lesbians chained themselves to the Senate door. And then, when they realized they were losing, they went to the slaughterhouse and got plastic bags of pig's blood and came back and wrote on our marble floors the names of the people they hated the most.
In the end, in spite of an unprecedented 3-year congressional extension, Stop ERA and the pro-family movement had won.
Phyllis Schlafly, where are you now? In victory, you are here with us, and we welcome you.
If any one person can be credited with stopping this movement, which was sweeping like wildfire, it would be Phyllis Schlafly.
Then conquer we must. For our cause it is just, and this be our motto, in God is our trust. We have the people with the strength of character, and this battle we have waged has proved it. Thank you for being here.
The defeat of the Equal Rights Amendment was terribly important for America, for the Constitution, for families, and for our American way of life. It was also terribly important to the conservative movement. Our battle against the Equal Rights Amendment created the pro-family movement, which has now become a vital force in national politics. Our fight against the ERA also taught conservatives that they could win.
In 1980, conservatives did win. California Governor Ronald Reagan won the Republican nomination for president. And behind the scenes, Phyllis Schlafly helped conservatives like Reagan win primaries and key party platform battles over abortion, ERA, and national defense. For Phyllis, Ronald Reagan's victory was the fruit of many years' labor.
Ronald Reagan personified everything that the conservative and pro-family movement was looking for in a leader. He made us feel good about America. He inspired patriotism. He was for traditional moral values. He was for fiscal integrity and cutting taxes. And of course, he was for a strong national defense, especially the Strategic Defense Initiative.
President Reagan had great respect for Phyllis, and beyond that, actually a great deal of friendship. He always thought of her, obviously, as a very important Republican leader, but beyond that, he and she thought so much alike. And I know that of all the people who called the White House to talk to him, hers was a call that always went through because she had a lot of good ideas, and he always knew that she was going to be helping.
Phyllis Schlafly helped mobilize support through the grassroots organization she began during the ERA battle.
I remember years ago when I was driving her from one ERA talk to another here in Birmingham. She just makes use of every second, and she said, now, I need to talk to y'all about something. She said, we need a new organization. We're going to call it Eagle Forum. And our motto will be Isaiah 40:31. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall walk and not be weary. They shall run and not faint. That's the source of her strength.
Phyllis Schlafly and Eagle Forum, the activist organization that she's created and led, have changed America, and they've changed the world. She's shown us that we can win because she's done it. She's shown us how to win because she and activists that she's inspired have done so. We've seen this on the Equal Rights Amendment. We've seen it on fights over taxes, on the national defense of this country.
I always admire the fact that when I got into a fight that nobody dared to take on in '85, the first people that were there were Eagle Forum, and we won that fight.
Phyllis Schlafly got involved in education too. She published a book, Child Abuse in the Classroom. which exposed public education programs undermining parental values, and teamed with Iowa Senator Charles Grassley.
We were able, through her leadership and my carrying the ball on the floor of the Senate, being able to restore those parental rights for some control over the education of their kids, particularly the testing of their kids, the way it was intended by the 1978 legislation. It wouldn't have been possible without her help.
Phyllis has the most extraordinary network of effective people in every state, almost every city. There are people that she can rely upon, people that she has worked with for years, people she has trained, people who are sources of intelligence to her about what is going on politically, people who look to her for guidance on critical matters.
Ronald Reagan had a meeting with Gorbachev scheduled in Geneva. It was clear that the purpose of the meeting on Gorbachev's part was to get us to abandon our position in favor of building a Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI. A lot of Hollywood types and also Bella Abzug and some of the feminists announced that they were going to Geneva to try to get Ronald Reagan to compromise with Gorbachev and give it up. And I decided that Ronald Reagan needed some support from grassroots Americans. So I led a delegation of leaders to go to Geneva to cheer Ronald Reagan on and to let him know that the American people backed him in standing firm on SDI, which he did.
Her strong support of peace through strength and a strong national defense establishment were critical towards us achieving that, and which ultimately brought about then the end of the Cold War.
Phyllis has a marvelous ability to analyze the issues and to cut right through all the peripheral stuff and get to the essence of it, and to frame the issue in such a way that it's readily understandable and to arm you with facts that are very useful.
I try every channel of communication, the Phyllis Schlafly report, the newspaper column, the radio commentaries, the call-in radio program, and all of the hundreds of interviews that I give all the time on radio and television.
I pray that you and all your eagles will continue your vigilance and service to our country as citizen lobbyists, bringing the message of life, liberty, and limited government to the White House, the halls of Congress, and the state capitals. Congratulations again on your years of service to America. Thank you, and God bless you.
We've had a lot of victories in the past. We can't rest on our laurels. There are always new battles to fight. Education is a big issue at every level of government, from Congress through the state legislature to the school board. We want to be there with our organization to make sure that the right policy is adopted and the right bills are passed.
Good afternoon, Eagle Forum.
We think it's important to have a presence in Washington. Congress has such an enormous effect on the lives and the money of each and every one of us, and we feel the conservative voice should be heard at that level.
Well, I can remember my own struggle in 1984. I was a really unknown person, and I wanted to change jobs and do something for my children. Eagle Forum was the one, probably, I think, in this case, the first organization to talk to me, find out what I stood for, test my own resolve, and to say, yes, we'll step up, we'll commit to you, we will help you.
We helped candidates, we gave them financial assistance, we did in-kind contributions, we ran ads for them, we gave them technical assistance, and we provided all that support early, when none of the other PAC communities would even let them in the door.
Phyllis has organized it that way, and she understands that you can have a profound effect on the electoral process earlier than the general elections. And she and Eagle Forum were active in my race, and I certainly was grateful for that.
Well, I think I was one of the targeted races because it was a very tight race in a 43% Republican, 42% Democrat district. So Eagle Forum really involved itself. It made a PAC contribution. All of the many thousands of donors to Eagle Forum collectively gave me a little bit of that support. Tim Hutchison of Arkansas and Jay Dickey, a lot of us wouldn't be here if it weren't for Eagle Forum.
I joined Eagle Forum because I believe in defending our country, defending God, defending our principles and values that we hold dear to our hearts, that we know are true, that our parents taught us.
Lisa Dickert heads up Eagle Forum's collegians. part of Eagle Forum's effort to return conservatism to American universities.
The big problem on college campuses today is what we call the tenured radicals. The radicals of the 1960s are now professors with tenure. They're highly intolerant. They're teaching their own brand of political correctness. I speak on college campuses, and I've seen a lot of this hostility to the values that many of us hold dear. We started Eagle Forum collegians on the college campuses to give a support group to the young people coming onto the campus so that they can stand up to this brand of liberal intolerance. We've had a lot of success with it.
In November of 1993, we started with 10 chapters, and 1 year later, we're forming nearly 100 chapters on college campuses. We're doing great things, and students want to get involved.
I decided to join Eagle Forum because primarily of Phyllis Schlafly. To me, she is a paragon of excellence in the conservative movement, and I think Eagle Forum can serve as an outlet to galvanize these conservative students and to provide them with a voice.
This is the Eagle Forum Center in St. Louis, Missouri. It is here that Phyllis Schlafly lays the foundation for tomorrow's pro-family victories.
My hope is that the Eagle Forum Education Center in St. Louis will continue my life work. That means training women and men to participate in the policymaking process in this country so that we can leave a better country, a freer country, to our children and grandchildren. What's the country going to be like 10 or 20 years from now? We want our children and grandchildren to grow up in a free and independent country. This requires the vigilance of grassroots Americans all over the country. Our center will give a permanent headquarters that will give a home for Eagle Forum, and this work will last into the foreseeable future.
I think that almost universally, American conservatives would agree that Phyllis Schlafly is the First Lady of American conservatism.
Hi, Phyllis. You know, in the past 30 years, few women or men have done as much to advance the cause of God, family, and country as you have. You have been out front when being out front was not popular. You have drawn the ire of liberals, feminists, and the media in particular because you have been courageous and unafraid to speak the truth. Because of your work and the work of Eagle Forum, this nation's truly better off today. And in light of the challenges that our families and freedoms face today, it's vital, I believe, that you and Eagle Forum continue that work now and in the future. You're a patriot, Phyllis, and a friend. And my hope and belief is that your best work is still ahead.
I want my grandchildren to enjoy the great America that I have known, with opportunity for everybody, with freedom, with independence. This is what we're working for. The battle never ends, it goes on and on. But I hope that with our organization, we'll be able to motivate and encourage people to present the conservative image, the constitutional vision of what this country's all about, and make sure we can keep it forever.